I'm too young to be tied down in this marriage. Mia Harper stood in our kitchen doorway, arms crossed, wearing that designer blazer she'd bought with money from our joint account. The same blazer she'd worn to 3 different work dinners last month. I kept my face neutral, stirring my coffee like she'd just announced the weather forecast. "Okay," I said. "Want me to help you pack?" Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. She'd been expecting tears, begging, maybe some dramatic scene where I'd fight for our 8-year marriage. Instead, I walked past her to the bedroom closet and started pulling her clothes off hangers. "Tom, you're not listening to me," she said, following me. "I need space to explore who I really am." "I heard you." I folded her silk blouses with the same care I'd use for newspaper wrapping. "You want to explore, so explore." 20 minutes later, her suitcase sat by the front door. I slipped a folded note into the side pocket where she'd find it later. "Explore all you want. I'll be fine." Mia stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's it? You're just letting me go? What did you expect? A hostage situation?" She grabbed her keys and designer purse, pausing at the door. "I'll call you in a few days. Maybe we can talk about counseling or—" "Take your time," I said, already heading back to my coffee. "Really explore those options." The door closed with a soft click. I sat at our kitchen table, my kitchen table now, and listened to her Audi pull out of the driveway. Then I opened my laptop and started researching divorce attorneys. 3 weeks later, the exploration rumors started filtering back through our mutual friends. Steph Martinez, Mia's Instagram-obsessed friend, couldn't keep her mouth shut if her life depended on it. She'd post blurry photos from upscale bars with captions like, "Girls' night out with my adventurous bestie." But the photos always included mysterious male silhouettes in expensive suits. Pete Morrison, my best friend since high school, owned a hardware store downtown. He'd become my unofficial intelligence network, picking up gossip from customers who knew Mia. "Your wife's been making quite the impression at Romano's," Pete told me one Thursday evening. We were sharing beers at Murphy's Pub, our usual spot. Mrs. Henderson saw her there Tuesday night, getting real cozy with some guy in a Porsche. "Let me guess," I said. "Tall, graying temples. Thinks he's Don Draper?" "You know him? Greg Tulliver, her boss at the advertising agency." Pete whistled low. "The married guy with the penthouse downtown?" "That's the one." I took a long sip of my beer. Apparently, Mia's exploration has a very specific GPS coordinate. The confirmation came 2 days later, when I stopped by our house to grab some tools from the garage. Mia had forgotten to log out of her iPad, which was still connected to our shared Wi-Fi. Her messages were right there on the screen. "Greg. Can't wait till he's out of the picture completely. You're mine tonight. Mia. Soon, baby. Tom's too clueless to figure it out anyway. Greg. Your husband's an idiot. Good thing you're upgrading." I screenshot everything, then forwarded the images to my personal email. Then I did something that felt surprisingly therapeutic. I factory reset the iPad and left it exactly where I'd found it. That night, I called my cousin Lenny, who ran a small law practice specializing in divorce cases. Not the fanciest attorney in town, but shrewd and thorough. "Tom, buddy, I hate to say this, but you've got a textbook case of marital abandonment," Lenny said after I'd filled him in. "She left voluntarily, she's clearly involved with another man, and you've got documentation. This could go very smoothly for you." "Define smoothly." "Well, since she walked out and you can prove infidelity, she's not exactly in a position to demand alimony. Plus, the house is in your name, right? Both our names. But I've been making the mortgage payments solo for 3 years. Even better, start documenting everything, Tom. Every expense, every communication, every piece of evidence about her affair. This exploration of hers is going to cost her big time." 6 months passed. I'd settled into a routine that didn't revolve around Mia's schedule, Mia's career demands, or Mia's constant need for attention. I'd started dating Erin Walsh, a nurse at the local hospital who actually listened when I talked and didn't check her phone every 5 minutes during dinner. Life was getting good. Too good, apparently. The doorbell rang on a rainy Thursday evening in October. I opened it to find Mia standing there with a suitcase, mascara slightly smudged, looking like a magazine ad for regret. "I'm ready to commit now," she said softly. "I've done my exploring. I know what I want." I leaned against the doorframe, studying her. She'd lost weight, probably from stress. Her designer clothes looked expensive, but somehow desperate, like armor that wasn't quite fitting right anymore. "That's nice," I said. "Too bad I found someone who already knew what she wanted." Mia's face went pale. "Someone else? Tom, you can't be serious. We're married. Are we? Because last I checked, you were too young to be tied down. That was a mistake. I was confused, going through something. You were going through Greg Tulliver. The words hit her like a slap. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Here's the thing, Mia, I continued, my voice steady and calm. You wanted to explore, so I explored too. Turns out there's a whole world of women out there who don't need to shop around to know a good thing when they have it. I started to close the door, but she put her hand against it. Tom, please, we can work this out. I'll do anything. You already did everything, with your boss, in his Porsche, and his penthouse, and probably half the upscale bars in the city. Her face crumpled. How did you? Doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that your exploration period is over, and so is our marriage. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a full 5 minutes in the rain before finally getting back in her car. The game was officially on. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from Mia. I deleted them all without reading and blocked her number. Then I called my real estate agent. Tom, the market's hot right now, Janet Reeves told me over the phone. A house like yours could sell in 2 weeks, maybe less. Perfect. List it today. What about Mia? Doesn't she need to sign off on this? Check the paperwork, Janet. I've been making solo mortgage payments for 3 years. Legally, I can sell. By noon, there was a for sale sign in my front yard. By evening, I'd moved my essentials to a furnished apartment across town. Mia could explore all she wanted, but she'd be doing it without a home base. The first showing was scheduled for Saturday. Mia showed up unannounced Friday night, using her key to let herself in. I was there packing the last of my books when she walked into the living room. You can't sell our house, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Our house? When's the last time you contributed to the mortgage? I was going through a difficult time. You were going through Greg Tulliver, she flinched. That's over. It didn't work out. Shocking. A married man who cheats on his wife turned out to be unreliable? Who could have predicted that? Mia sat down on the couch, my couch now, and put her head in her hands. Tom, I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but we can fix this. The only mistake I made was not changing the locks 6 months ago. I pulled out my phone and called a locksmith. Hi, this is Tom Harper on Maple Street. I need my locks changed first thing tomorrow morning. Yes, all of them. No, just one set of keys. Mia stared at me in disbelief. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this. The house sold in 9 days. Cash offer $20,000 over asking price. I deposited my half of the proceeds into a new bank account at a different bank, one where Mia had never set foot. Meanwhile, Erin and I had been growing closer. She was everything Mia wasn't. Straightforward, genuine, supportive without being needy. When I told her about the house sale, she just nodded. Good for you, she said. Fresh start. You don't think I'm being too harsh? Tom, she abandoned your marriage to have an affair with her boss. You're not being harsh enough. That weekend, Pete threw a small gathering at his place to celebrate my newfound freedom. About 15 people showed up. Friends who'd stuck by me during the separation. Coworkers who'd watched me handle the situation with more grace than Mia deserved. We were halfway through the evening when Steph Martinez showed up uninvited. Where's Mia? She asked, looking around like she expected to find her ex-best friend hiding behind the couch. Exploring, I said, raising my beer. Last I heard, she was between the penthouse and the parking garage. A few people chuckled. Steph's face turned red. You're being cruel, Tom. She's going through a really hard time. So was I. Difference is, I didn't handle it by hopping into my boss's Porsche. She never, Steph started, then stopped herself. Never what? Never sent him photos of herself in lingerie I bought her? Never told him I was too stupid to figure out what was happening? Never spent 3 nights a week at his place while I was home wondering why my wife suddenly needed so much overtime? The room went quiet. Steph looked like she wanted to disappear. Here's the thing about exploration, I continued. Sometimes you discover new places. Sometimes you just get lost. Mia chose to get lost. Steph left 20 minutes later. By Monday morning, half our old social circle had heard about the confrontation. The other half heard about it by Tuesday. Wednesday brought a new development. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Tom Harper? Speaking. This is Sandra Tulliver. I think we need to talk. Greg's wife. I'd met her twice at company parties, both times before Mia's exploration phase began. She seemed nice enough, quiet, intelligent, the kind of woman who noticed everything but said little. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Tulliver?" "It's about our respective spouses. I have some information you might find interesting." We met that evening at a coffee shop downtown. Sandra looked tired but determined, carrying a manila folder thick with documents. "I've been building a case against Greg for months," she said without preamble. "I hired a private investigator in August. Your wife isn't his first affair, Tom. She's just the most obvious one." She slid the folder across the table. Inside were photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts, and phone records going back 2 years. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because Greg's gotten sloppy, and your wife's gotten greedy. Look at page 15. I flipped to a bank statement, showing cash withdrawals, totaling $8,000 over 6 weeks. "He's been giving her money," Sandra continued. "Lots of it. And according to my investigator, she's been spending it on things that should have been joint marital expenses, like the credit card bill for that designer wardrobe she's been building." "Credit card bill? The one in both your names. The one she's been making minimum payments on while spending Greg's cash on everything else." My stomach dropped. "I haven't seen any credit card statements because she had them forwarded to a P.O. box. Tom, your wife has been systematically destroying your credit while building herself a new life with my husband's money." Sandra handed me a second folder. "These are copies of everything. Use them however you want. I'm filing for divorce next week, and I'm taking Greg for everything he's worth." That night, I called Lenny and scheduled an emergency meeting. By Thursday afternoon, I had a complete picture of Mia's financial betrayal. The credit card debt was real, $18,000 and climbing. The forged signature on the application was real too. "This is fraud, Tom," Lenny said, studying the documents. "She could go to prison for this. I don't want her in prison. I want her out of my life. Then we use this as leverage. She signs whatever divorce agreement we put in front of her, or we turn this over to the authorities." Friday morning, I had the papers drawn up. By Friday evening, they were in Mia's hands, delivered by a process server to the cheap motel where she'd been staying since Greg's wife confronted him. The phone call came Saturday morning. "Tom, we need to talk." I'd unblocked her number, knowing this conversation was inevitable. "Talk. The papers you sent, they're not fair. I deserve half of everything. You deserve exactly what you're getting, nothing. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. With what money? The credit card you maxed out in my name? Or maybe Greg will lend you some cash. Oh wait, he's too busy getting divorced by his wife, who has copies of every receipt for every dollar he spent on you." Silence on the other end. "Here's how this works, Mia. You sign the papers, and I don't press charges for the credit card fraud. You fight me, and I turn everything over to the police. Your choice. You wouldn't. Try me." She hung up. 3 hours later, Lenny called to tell me the signed papers had been delivered to his office. The divorce would be final in 60 days. My parents had been married 42 years, and every November they threw a big party to celebrate Dad's birthday and their anniversary, which fell on the same weekend. This year's gathering was larger than usual. About 30 people crammed into their modest house, including aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends who'd known me since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I'd been dreading the questions about Mia, but surprisingly, most people seemed to already know the basics. Small-town gossip travels fast, and Sandra Tulliver had been busy making sure everyone understood exactly why her marriage was ending. "Tom's better off without that woman," I overheard Aunt Helen telling my mother in the kitchen. "Always thought she was too good for the rest of us." Mom just nodded and kept arranging cookies on a platter. She'd never particularly liked Mia, though she'd been too polite to say so until recently. I was helping Dad set up extra chairs in the living room when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a familiar figure on the front porch. "I'll get it," I told Dad, already knowing who it was. Mia stood there in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, holding a small wrapped gift and wearing her most apologetic smile. "Hi, Tom. I hope it's okay that I came. I wanted to wish your dad a happy birthday." Behind me, the house had gone quiet. 30 people were suddenly very interested in our front door conversation. "How thoughtful," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Come on in. I was just about to make an announcement." Mia's smile faltered slightly, but she followed me into the living room. Every eye in the house was on us. "Everyone," I said, raising my voice to address the crowd. "Since Mia's here, this seems like a perfect time to share some news about our divorce." The room was so quiet you could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. "See, I recently discovered some interesting financial information. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken of the credit card statements. Turns out, while Mia was exploring her options with her boss, she was also exploring the limits of credit cards she'd opened in both our names. I held up the phone so people in the front could see the numbers. $18,000 in debt, forged signature. All while she was spending her boyfriend's cash on designer clothes and expensive dinners. Mia's face went white. Tom, you can't what? Tell the truth? Share facts with my family? I looked around the room at faces that ranged from shocked to disgusted to grimly satisfied. But wait, there's more. I swiped to the next photo. Here's a voicemail Mia left for Greg last month, begging him for money because, and I quote, Tom's too stupid to notice the credit card bills anyway. I hit play. Mia's voice filled the room, desperate and whining. Greg, baby, I need another $2,000. The minimum payment's due tomorrow, and if Tom sees a late notice, he might start asking questions. Don't worry, he's too stupid to notice the credit card bills anyway. He trusts me completely. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Uncle Frank, Dad's brother and a retired bank manager, spoke up. That's fraud, Tom. Plain and simple. Yes, it is, I agreed. Fortunately, Mia's already signed divorce papers that protect me from any further financial responsibility for her exploration expenses. Mia tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around the room at faces that had once welcomed her as family and now regarded her with open contempt. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out a final document. This is a restraining order application. Mia's been harassing my girlfriend, showing up at her workplace, making threats. Apparently, exploration doesn't include respecting other people's boundaries. That was when Sandra Tulliver stepped forward from the back of the room. I hadn't even noticed her arrive. Hello, Mia, Sandra said calmly. Fancy meeting you here. Mia looked like she'd seen a ghost. Sandra, I didn't know you were friends with Tom's family? Oh yes, we've become quite close since I hired that private investigator. Sandra opened her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. These are copies of all the photos my investigator took of you and my husband, the hotel receipts, the restaurant bills, the jewelry he bought you, with our joint credit card. She handed the envelope to my mother. Mrs. Harper, I thought you might like to see exactly what kind of woman your son was married to. Mom opened the envelope and glanced at the contents. Her face hardened in a way I'd rarely seen. Get out, Mom said quietly. Mrs. Harper, please. If I could just explain. Get out. Mom's voice filled the house. Get out of my home and don't ever come back. Dad stepped forward, his retired cop instincts kicking in. You heard her. Time to go. Mia looked around the room one more time, searching for a friendly face. She found none. Even her former allies, the people who'd been neutral during our separation, were staring at her with disgust. This isn't over, Tom, she said as Dad escorted her toward the door. Yes, it is, I replied. It's been over for months. You're just now figuring it out. After she left, the party slowly resumed, but the mood had shifted. People were talking in small groups, processing what they'd witnessed. Several relatives came up to pat me on the back or offer words of support. You handled that well, Sandra told me as she prepared to leave. Better than she deserved. Thank you for being here. Your timing was perfect. Oh, that wasn't timing. I've been planning this for weeks. Mia needed to understand that her actions have consequences beyond just your marriage. Pete, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet during the confrontation, finally approached me as people were starting to leave. Remind me never to cross you, he said with a grin. That was surgical. She made her choices, Pete. I just made sure everyone knew what those choices were. What happens now? Now she gets to explore what life looks like when you've burned every bridge you've ever crossed. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Mia didn't contest any of the terms. December brought snow and a sense of closure I hadn't felt in years. The divorce was final, my credit was clean, and Aaron had moved in with me. Life was settling into a comfortable routine when Pete called with disturbing news. You need to know what happened at the store yesterday, he said over the phone. Mia showed up. What did she want? Money, at first. Said she was having trouble finding work and needed a loan. When I turned her down, she tried a different approach. What kind of approach? Pete was quiet for a moment. Tom, she tried to seduce me, right there in the hardware store, with customers in the next aisle. Started talking about how she'd always found me attractive, how you never appreciated her the way she deserved. My jaw clenched. What did you do? I recorded it, the whole conversation. Figured you might need evidence if she keeps escalating. Send it to me. An hour later, I was listening to Mia's voice on my phone, slurred slightly from what sounded like day drinking. Pete, you've always been so much more masculine than Tom, so much stronger. I bet you know how to treat a woman right. I could show you what you've been missing. Pete's response was perfect. Mia, you need to leave, now, and don't come back. But Pete, I'm desperate. I need somewhere to stay, just for a few nights. I could make it worth your while. I said leave. Tom's my friend, and even if he wasn't, I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole. The recording ended with the sound of the store's bell as she left. I forwarded the audio to Lenny, along with a note. Add this to the restraining order file. I forwarded the audio to Lenny, along with a note. Add this to the restraining order file. I forwarded the audio to Lenny. Odd receipt. But Mia's desperation was just getting started. The next week, she tried to get a job at the advertising agency where she used to work. Not with Greg's company. That bridge was thoroughly burned, but with their main competitor across town. The interview didn't go well. According to Sandra, who'd made sure everyone in the local advertising community knew exactly why both Tulliver marriages had ended, Mia's reputation preceded her. Word travels fast in this business, Sandra told me when we met for coffee to discuss the ongoing legal proceedings against Greg. No one wants to hire someone who's known for sleeping with married bosses and committing credit card fraud. She's not going to take this lying down. Probably not. Greg's been calling me, trying to work out some kind of reconciliation. I told him he'd have better luck reconciling with a rattlesnake. Sandra was right about Mia not giving up. The following Monday, she tried a new tactic, sabotaging my professional reputation. I was in a staff meeting when my boss, Mr. Reiner, asked to speak with me privately afterward. Tom, I received some disturbing emails about you over the weekend, he said, closing his office door. Someone claiming to be a former colleague says you've been embezzling money from previous employers. That's completely false, Mr. Reiner. I know it's false. I ran a background check on you when we hired you, and I called your references again this morning. Everyone speaks very highly of you. He handed me a printed email. But I thought you should see what someone's trying to do to you. The email was obviously from Mia, though she'd used a fake name and email address. It was full of specific accusations about financial impropriety, claiming I'd stolen money from clients and falsified records. Sir, this is from my ex-wife. She's been escalating her harassment since our divorce was finalized. I figured as much. The writing style seemed emotional, and the timing was suspicious, right after your promotion was announced. My promotion. In all the chaos with Mia, I'd almost forgotten. Mr. Reiner had offered me a management position with a significant salary increase. The announcement was supposed to go out company-wide today. What do you want to do about this? He asked. With your permission, I'd like to address it head-on. If she sent it to you, she probably sent similar emails to other people in the company. Good thinking. Why don't you put together a brief statement for the staff meeting this afternoon? Clear the air completely. That afternoon, I stood in front of 40 coworkers and did something I never thought I'd have to do: defend my professional integrity against my ex-wife's lies. Some of you may have received emails over the weekend making false accusations about my character and my work history, I began. These emails were sent by my ex-wife as part of an ongoing harassment campaign that began when I discovered she was having an affair with her boss and committing credit card fraud in my name. I pulled out copies of the divorce decree, the credit card fraud evidence, and the restraining order application. I'm sharing this with you because I believe in transparency, and because I want you to understand the context if you receive any further communications about me from this person. My colleague Janet raised her hand. Tom, did she really forge your signature on credit cards? $18,000 worth. The evidence is all documented in our divorce proceedings. Another coworker, Mike from accounting, spoke up. That's terrible, man. What kind of person does that to their spouse? The kind of person who sends fake emails to their ex-husband's employer, I replied. But I'm not going to let her sabotage the life I've built since she left. The room erupted in supportive comments. Several people came up afterward to offer encouragement and to share their own stories about difficult divorces. But the most satisfying moment came when Janet pulled me aside. Tom, I got one of those emails too. I deleted it immediately because it was obviously fake. But I wanted you to know, whoever wrote it made a huge mistake. What kind of mistake? She claimed you embezzled money from the Morrison account. But Morrison Hardware is Pete Morrison's store, right? Your best friend? Anyone who knows you would know that's ridiculous. I laughed for the first time in days. Mia never was good with details. That evening, Aaron and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I showed the message to Aaron, who just shook her head. She's unraveling, Aaron said. This is what happens when someone who's used to manipulating people suddenly finds themselves with no power. Should I be worried about Mia? No. She's all bark and no bite. But you should probably document everything, just in case. Then I screenshot the text and forwarded it to Lenny, then blocked the number. But even as I tried to focus on dinner and conversation with Aaron, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mia's desperation was building towards something bigger. I was right. January brought a cold snap that froze the city solid for 2 weeks. It also brought Mia's most desperate gambit yet. I was at work on a Tuesday morning when Lenny called with news that was both infuriating and absurd. Tom, your ex-wife is suing you for emotional distress, he said. And I could hear him trying not to laugh. She claims you orchestrated a campaign of public humiliation that damaged her mental health and career prospects. Are you serious? Dead serious. She's asking for $50,000 in damages and a public apology. What's her evidence? That's the beautiful part. Her evidence is a collection of screenshots from social media posts, witness statements from people who were at your parents' party, and copies of the very same documents that prove she committed credit card fraud. I sat back in my office chair, amazed at the sheer audacity. So she's using evidence of her own crimes to prove I was mean to her? Essentially, yes. Tom, I've seen some desperate legal strategies in my time, but this takes the cake. Her lawyer, and I use that term loosely, is some guy who advertises on bus benches. What are our chances? Of winning? 100%. Of getting this thrown out before it even goes to trial? Also 100%. But here's the interesting part. I think we should let it proceed. Why? Because this gives us the perfect opportunity to put everything on the public record. Every affair, every forged signature, every harassment incident. She's essentially asking a judge to rule on whether exposing the truth about someone's behavior constitutes emotional distress. And you think the judge will see it our way? Tom, she's suing you for telling people she committed fraud, while admitting she committed fraud. I've seen smarter legal strategies from people representing themselves in traffic court. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for February 15th. In the meantime, Mia escalated her harassment campaign. She started showing up at places where she knew I'd be. The grocery store, the gym, even the coffee shop where Aaron and I had our first date. She never approached directly, just made sure I saw her, usually taking photos with her phone, as if documenting my presence was somehow evidence of wrongdoing. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon when Aaron and I were leaving the movie theater. Mia was waiting by my car, holding a manila envelope. Tom, I need to talk to you, she said, ignoring Aaron completely. No, you don't. You need to stay away from me. This is important. It's about the lawsuit. Talk to my lawyer. I moved to unlock my car, but Mia stepped in front of me. You've ruined my life, she said, her voice rising. I can't get a job. I can't get credit. I can't even go to the grocery store without people staring at me. That's what happens when you commit fraud and cheat on your husband. I made mistakes, but what you did was cruel, vindictive. Aaron, who'd been quietly observing, finally spoke up. What he did was tell the truth. Mia whirled around to face her. Stay out of this. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know enough. I know you left him to have an affair, stole money, and are now harassing him because he won't let you come crawling back. You little... Mia started forward, but I stepped between them. That's enough. Aaron, get in the car. But Mia wasn't done. As Aaron walked around to the passenger side, Mia lunged forward and shoved her, hard enough to send her stumbling. You think you're so much better than me? Mia screamed. You're just his rebound. He'll get tired of you too. That's when something inside me snapped. You want to know the difference between you and Aaron? I said, my voice deadly calm. She knew what she wanted from day one. She didn't need to shop around, didn't need to explore her options, didn't need to steal money to figure out who she was. I pulled out my phone and started recording. And here you are, 6 months after I divorced you, still trying to insert yourself into my life, still trying to control the narrative, still trying to make everyone else responsible for the consequences of your choices. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by Mia's shouting. Several people were recording with their phones. You committed fraud, I continued, my voice carrying across the parking lot. You had an affair. You abandoned our marriage. And now you're suing me because I told people the truth about what you did. Mia looked around at the growing crowd of onlookers, suddenly realizing how this looked. Tom, please, can we just… No, we can't. You made your choices, Mia. You explored your options. You found out what life looks like when you burn every bridge you cross. Don't blame me because you don't like the view. I helped Aaron into the car and drove away, leaving Mia standing alone in the parking lot while strangers recorded her meltdown. The video went viral in our social circle within hours. By Monday morning, it had been shared dozens of times, with comments ranging from supportive to savage. Tom Harper is my hero, wrote someone I didn't even know. This is what happens when you mess with the wrong person, commented another. But the most satisfying response came from Sandra Tulliver. Some people never learn that actions have consequences. Nah, the preliminary hearing was a disaster for Mia. Her bus bench lawyer was unprepared, her evidence was laughable, and the judge was clearly annoyed at having his time wasted. Harper, the judge said, you're asking this court to rule that your husband committed emotional distress by accurately describing your behavior to his family and friends. Your Honor, he humiliated me in front of dozens of people by telling them you committed credit card fraud and had an extramarital affair? Well, yes, but… And these things actually happened? Mia's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. Miss Harper, truth is an absolute defense against claims of defamation or emotional distress. You cannot sue someone for accurately describing your actions, even if those descriptions make you look bad. The case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning Mia couldn't refile. She was also ordered to pay my legal fees. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt a sense of finality I hadn't experienced since the divorce was finalized. Surely this was